Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel, The Intimacy Lab. I want you to imagine something for a moment. You send her a message. No reply. You watch her online, active, posting stories, liking comments, living her life. But your message sits there, invisible, ignored, and the ache that begins in your chest quickly becomes frustration, confusion, even resentment. What did I do wrong? Why doesn't she care? You scroll back through every conversation, searching for the exact moment she drifted away, dissecting words and silences, until her silence starts to shape your self-worth. But let's pause. What if I told you that this moment, this exquisite discomfort, isn't just about her? It's about something far more important to you. Her silence invites you not to chase, not to react, but to rise. In today's conversation, we're going to gently and powerfully explore what to do when a woman ignores you. Not to feed your anger, not to fuel revenge, but to destroy the ego dance that she may expect and to reclaim your masculine center with grace, dignity, and strength. This isn't about hurting her, it's about mastering yourself, about how you respond when you feel unseen. Because that response is what defines you as a man. So take a breath, let's begin. You know that moment, don't you? The one where your stomach tightens a little and your mind races quietly in the background. You sent her a thoughtful message, maybe even a playful one, a moment of connection you were looking forward to sharing, and nothing. No response. She's active online, she's sharing memes with her friends, living her life as if your words didn't even deserve a glance. And you sit there wondering, should I text again? Should I call her? Should I give her space? Or, and this one is especially haunting, did she just stop caring? It's in these moments of silence where a man can lose himself. Not because she has power over him, but because he gives it away, willingly, almost desperately, in search of a validation that feels urgent but is ultimately hollow. And here's where we begin today's conversation, not about her behavior, but about your response. Because how you act when a woman ignores you will shape not just your connection with her, but your relationship with yourself. Let's take a moment and breathe together. Right now, you might be carrying frustration or a desire for answers, but let's approach this as an opportunity. The first thing you must realize is that silence is not just absence, it's a message. A woman's silence often speaks loudly about where she is emotionally, what she's experiencing internally, and sometimes what she expects from you. But it's also a mirror, reflecting back the state of your own emotional world. What I want to invite you to understand is this: when a woman ignores you, she may very well be testing not your worth, but your self-possession. And that is what we will work on here. You can't control her response, her moods, or her level of interest, but you can control your center of gravity. So the first point we must address is this instinct to chase. When a woman ignores you, the most common reaction is to lean in further, to double down, to send another text, to attempt to win her attention back through charm, logic, or even guilt. This is understandable, but dangerous, because what happens when you chase is that you affirm her control over the dynamic. You're signaling, often without realizing it, that her attention is the currency that defines your value. And if you do that, if you let her silence dictate your worth, you're setting yourself up for an endless game of pursuit where you are always the one seeking approval and she is always the one granting it. So instead of chasing, pause, and I don't mean a passive-aggressive pause where you pull back hoping that she'll chase you. I mean a genuine pause, a moment of self-reflection where you ask yourself, what do I truly want in this connection? Do I want her simply because she is ignoring me, because her attention has become scarce and therefore more valuable? Or do I desire a relationship that feels mutual, respectful, and emotionally present? This kind of pause is where your masculine power lies. In stillness, in choosing not to react from insecurity, but to respond from self-awareness. In doing so, you subtly destroy the ego dance that her silence might otherwise provoke. The second point is perhaps even more delicate. When a woman ignores you, it's tempting to turn inward with self-blame, to scan yourself for faults, to wonder whether you said something wrong, whether you failed to meet her expectations somehow. But here's the thing, many times her silence isn't even about you. It's about her own emotions, her own unfinished stories, her fears, her hesitations, or even her need for space to process feelings she doesn't yet understand herself. In other words, don't make her silence your story. Her decision not to respond doesn't necessarily reflect your inadequacy. It reflects her own inner dialogue, which you may never fully understand. And that's okay. In fact, the strongest thing you can do when she ignores you is to not personalize it, to recognize that you can hold compassion for her process while maintaining your own dignity. This is the difference between empathy and entanglement. When you personalize her silence, you become entangled in her emotional world, losing touch with your own center. But when you allow her the space to be wherever she needs to be without internalizing it, you stay rooted in your strength. Now, let me take this even deeper. There's a certain paradox at play here. Women often admire a man who does not crumble in the face of being ignored. The way you act in this space between her withdrawal and your desire will determine how she perceives you. If you become desperate, needy, or aggressive, you confirm that your confidence is fragile. But if you stand calmly, grounded in your own worth, you demonstrate an emotional maturity that is rare and incredibly attractive. So what does standing calmly look like in practice? It means continuing to live your life fully, even when she goes silent. It means allowing your routines, your friendships, your passions, and your joy to remain intact and vibrant. It means not shrinking your world to the size of a text thread. When a woman sees that her absence does not fracture your stability, it communicates something profound, that you are whole with or without her presence, that you do not need her attention to feel significant. And from this place of self-anchoring, you actually shift the dynamic, because now the question isn't whether you can win her back, but whether she is worthy of re-entering your abundant life. Let's be clear, this isn't about playing hard to get. It's not about using stoicism as a weapon or withholding affection as a tactic. It's about being deeply in touch with your own self, worth, so that your actions flow naturally from confidence rather than fear. A woman can sense the difference. When you act from confidence, you radiate calm energy, emotional resilience, and an unshakable sense of purpose. When you act from fear, your words, gestures, and even your silences become heavy with neediness, insecurity, and self-doubt. So, as we move forward, remember, your reaction to her ignoring you isn't a small thing. It's a defining moment, a test not of her feelings, but of your mastery over your own emotions. And this is where we begin to reclaim your dignity, your focus, your vitality by stepping back into yourself, not away from her, but toward your own center. This is just the beginning of our journey together. In this dance of intimacy and ego, we'll explore how to not just react when a woman pulls away, but how to rise elegantly, calmly, powerfully. And as you sit with this idea of rising rather than reacting, I want you to feel into something deeper, that when a woman ignores you, the silence itself is an opportunity to rediscover what you're anchored to, because so often we confuse desire with attachment, presence with pursuit, and connection with control. But here's the beautiful truth. Your value does not fluctuate according to whether or not she responds today, tomorrow, or ever. And when you internalize that truth, not just think it, but really feel it in your bones, you start to show up differently in every relationship. Let's talk now about this subtle but critical distinction, acting versus reacting. When a woman goes silent, most men find themselves reacting impulsively. They react from a place of wounded ego, scrambling to interpret the silence as rejection, to decode what went wrong, or to strategize their next message to recapture her attention. But reacting is fundamentally different from acting. Reacting means you're letting her silence determine in your next move. It means you're giving her complete authority over the emotional rhythm between you. Acting, on the other hand, is intentional. Acting comes from a place of self-awareness, dignity, and inner strength. It is a choice made not to manipulate her or punish her silence, but to honor yourself. When you act rather than react, you recognize that you do not have to fill the void that her silence creates. You can simply let the void be, and that is far more powerful than any impulsive text or emotional plea. So here's what acting looks like in practice. When she ignores you, you acknowledge how it makes you feel, and then you turn your attention inward, not outward. Instead of rushing to repair the connection, you ask yourself why you feel so unsettled by the silence. Is it because you genuinely care about this woman and miss her presence, or is it because her attention has become a marker of your own self-worth? This is where honesty with yourself becomes essential. Sometimes we don't pursue her because we love her. We pursue her because we can't bear the feeling of not being wanted. There's a difference between genuine affection and ego-driven validation, and if you're honest, you'll begin to see whether your urge to reach out is rooted in love or insecurity. Another important element here is emotional pacing. When a woman withdraws, that pause can create anxiety. And anxiety loves urgency. It whispers in your ear that you need to act fast before you lose her completely. It creates an internal sense of crisis where none may actually exist, and this is where your discipline comes in. Your ability to slow down your emotional pacing, to resist the pull of urgency, is key to maintaining your dignity. You don't need to resolve everything in a single moment. In fact, the more calm and steady you are in the face of her silence, the more magnetic you become. Why? Because calmness is rare, because grounded men stand out, because when a woman sees that her silence doesn't destabilize you, she feels both challenged and intrigued. Now let's talk about this challenge, this subtle way you destroy ego without ever raising your voice, without playing games or engaging in petty power struggles. The most profound challenge you can present is to show that you are unattached to the outcome of any one interaction. You don't punish her with coldness, you don't reward her with over-pursuit, you simply remain centered, engaged in your own life, moving forward with grace. This is where your energy shifts entirely. No longer is your day defined by waiting for her text. No longer is your mood dictated by whether or not she acknowledges you. You're not suppressing desire, you're transcending dependence. You begin to treat her presence as something you appreciate but do not require. And here's what happens when you do this. Your energy becomes light. You move through the world differently. Instead of shrinking into anxious analysis, you expand into confidence, purpose, and joy. You start cultivating other areas of your life that nourish you: friendships, work, creativity, fitness, hobbies. All those things that perhaps you neglected in the hunger for her validation suddenly re-emerge as sources of fulfillment. And this, too, is deeply attractive. Because here's the paradox: a woman's ego may enjoy feeling pursued, but her heart responds to a man who doesn't need to pursue, who chooses to engage but could easily walk away. That is what makes a man powerful in the realm of relationship, not his ability to overwhelm her with gifts, words, or promises, but his ability to remain fully himself, even when she pulls back. And what about communication itself? Let's be clear, this doesn't mean you should ghost her in return or become emotionally unavailable. Quite the opposite. If and when she reaches out again, you respond with warmth, openness, and clarity, not resentment. You are not holding a grudge, you are simply showing her that while you are available for real connection, you're no longer available for emotional games. This is the moment where your clarity becomes a gift to both of you. You begin to communicate honestly about what kind of relationship you want, what you value, and what you are willing to tolerate. But, and this is critical, you communicate from calmness, not anger, from grounded self-worth, not wounded pride. Let me share something even deeper here. Women often test men's emotional stability, consciously or unconsciously, to determine whether the man they are engaging with can hold space for complexities of their emotions. Her silence may not even be intentional, but it may reveal how much capacity you have to stay calm, patient, and steady when things feel uncertain. This is why your response matters so much. When you act from grounded calmness, when you resist the urge to rush, chase, or demand, you're communicating that you can hold emotional complexity, and that is a rare gift. But don't do it for her approval. Do it because this is who you choose to be, a man who is steady, a man who acts from clarity rather than confusion, a man who does not need chaos to feel alive. So when she ignores you, take that moment as a practice in patience, dignity, and presence. Not silence as punishment, but silence as clarity. You are showing her and yourself that you have boundaries, that you have value, and that you are not here to play an emotional tug-of-war. And as you continue to hold this energy, you begin to notice something subtle but powerful. Your focus returns to yourself, where it belongs. Your energy, which was scattered in anxiety and seeking, becomes consolidated again. You feel strong, whole, and centered. This is where we truly begin to change the dynamic, not by forcing her hand or manipulating her emotions, but by quietly shifting your posture toward yourself. And that posture is one of quiet confidence, steady presence, and relaxed detachment, not coldness but calm. Now that you are beginning to feel what it means to stand rooted in your own self-worth, let's go even deeper into the subtleties of power and presence when a woman pulls away or goes silent. You see, this moment is not just about how to act externally, it's about learning to master the emotional landscape within you. Because often when a woman ignores you, it's not the silence itself that hurts, it's the narrative you attach to that silence. Perhaps your mind begins crafting a story. She must have lost interest. Maybe she's talking to someone else. Maybe I wasn't enough. Each of these thoughts carries a sting, and as you hold them tightly, they shape your mood, your self-perception, your actions. But here's the reality. These narratives are just that, stories. They may have no basis in truth at all. She could be overwhelmed at work. She could be confused about her feelings. She could be retreating into her own world as a way to soothe or process something that has nothing to do with you. And so your real power in this moment comes not from trying to control her response or decipher her reasons, but from controlling the story you tell yourself. What would it feel like if, instead of assuming rejection, you assumed neutrality? What would it feel like if you said to yourself, her silence is about her, not about me. My value is unchanged. I am still whole, worthy, and dignified, regardless of whether she is available for connection today. That subtle shift in internal dialogue is transformative. It doesn't erase the disappointment, it honors it. But it doesn't allow the disappointment to become self-doubt, and this is where emotional maturity lies, in your ability to feel the sting of disconnection without spiraling into self-neglect. As you embody this awareness, something else happens. You begin to notice that your relationship to time itself starts to change. Where once you may have checked your phone every few minutes, hoping for that reply, now you let time breathe. You stop rushing the process. You let space exist without filling it compulsively. And this quality, spaciousness, is at the heart of masculine energy. Masculine energy holds space. It does not rush to fill silences with explanations or anxieties. It allows for ambiguity, uncertainty, and even discomfort. This is what makes a man magnetic, not just to women but to life itself. The ability to remain still, calm, and centered while others fluctuate. So when a woman ignores you, your opportunity is to embody this spaciousness. Rather than reaching out immediately, you breathe into the gap she has created. You honor it as a sacred space for reflection, not an emotional void you must quickly escape. You ask yourself, who am I in this silence? What is this silence revealing about my patterns, my insecurities, my expectations? This kind of self-inquiry is rare, but it is essential if you want to rise above the ego-driven dynamics that dominate so many modern relationships. Because, here's the truth, most men don't do this work. Most men react to a woman's silence with either desperation or detachment, swinging between chasing too much or withdrawing completely. But you have another path available, the path of grounded, conscious engagement. This path does not require you to suppress your feelings. In fact, it invites you to feel them more fully, but with curiosity rather than judgment. When you feel sadness, you allow it. When you feel anger, you observe it. When you feel anxiety, you welcome it as a teacher rather than treating it as a crisis. And all the while you continue living, you keep your routines alive, your body active, your friendships vibrant. You do not become smaller because she is distant. You do not contract because she has retreated. You expand. You grow, you mature. And this leads us to another powerful truth. The way you treat yourself when a woman ignores you is the clearest signal you send to her about how she may treat you in the future. If you show that your dignity is fragile, that your confidence depends on her immediate responsiveness, then you are teaching her that you will always adjust your pace, your mood, your energy to fit hers. But if you show that you remain calm, joyful, and self-possessed even in the face of her withdrawal, then you are teaching her that your worth is non-negotiable and that any relationship with you must honor that worth. This is not about dominance or control. It's about energetic clarity. When you are clear about your own value, you become a man who can love deeply without losing himself, who can care profoundly without becoming dependent, who can remain open without becoming vulnerable to manipulation. And what if she continues to ignore you indefinitely? What if this silence is not a temporary withdrawal, but a sign that she is no longer emotionally available? Then, my dear listener, your path is even clearer. You walk away, but not in bitterness. You walk away with gratitude, dignity, and grace, knowing that her silence gave you an opportunity to deepen your relationship with yourself. You don't need to create drama. You don't need to send long messages explaining your feelings or demanding closure. Your dignity is your closure. Your ability to stand tall, maintain your joy, and let go with love is the greatest act of power you can embody. And you'll notice something remarkable when you do this. Women, and people in general, respect men who can hold this kind of clarity. Even if she does not return, even if she drifts out of your life completely, you will have strengthened your own capacity for emotional resilience. You will have practiced holding your center in the face of uncertainty, and that skill will serve you in every relationship you ever have. So as we continue this conversation, keep this mantra in mind. Her silence is not a rejection of you. It is a reflection of where she is and an invitation for you to come home to yourself. Every time a woman ignores you, you are being called to master not her behavior but your own mind, your own emotions, your own story. And this is what we are here to practice together, the art of emotional self-mastery. The art of becoming a man whose dignity does not depend on the whims of another person's attention, but who remains fully himself, fully alive, fully centered, no matter what. And now, as you're learning to master your mind in these moments of silence, let's gently move even deeper into the heart of emotional freedom. When a woman ignores you, it is easy to become trapped in one subtle but destructive dynamic, emotional dependency disguised as love. Because if you pay attention closely, you will notice that so much of what you call desire may, in truth, be need. Need for validation, need for reassurance, need for certainty, but real love, mature love, the kind of love that elevates both people involved, is not rooted in need. It is rooted in freedom, in respect, in mutual presence. And so when you act from a place of freedom, when you step into the space that her silence creates and hold yourself with dignity and presence, you are not punishing her, you are freeing yourself. Freedom is a beautiful thing in relationship dynamics. It allows you to stay connected while staying whole. It allows you to care deeply without collapsing into anxiety. It allows you to experience desire without becoming enslaved to the outcome. And this is the point where your own story begins to shift. Instead of asking, "Why is she ignoring me?" you begin to ask a much more powerful question. Who do I want to be, regardless of what she chooses? This question changes everything because it puts the focus back where it belongs, on your integrity, your values, your emotional energy. Imagine that she's watching you, not your texts or your attempts to reconnect, but your energy, your life, your movement through the world. What would she see? A man waiting anxiously by his phone, shrinking into silence and self-doubt? Or a man who is alive, vibrant, engaged with his passions, secure enough to feel his disappointment, yet strong enough not to be defined by it? This is where you become most attractive, not in trying to destroy her ego for revenge or validation, but in gently dismantling your own ego's need for external affirmation. Let's pause here and talk about ego itself. The ego thrives on the idea that we must win. When a woman ignores you, your ego whispers, "Get her attention back, prove your worth, show her what she's missing." And while this impulse feels urgent, it's actually a trap, because the moment you make her attention your prize, you've handed her all your power. But what if your prize isn't her attention? What if your real prize is your emotional mastery, your ability to walk calmly through uncertainty, your capacity to hold space for complexity without collapsing into chaos? When you live this way, you begin to see that a woman ignoring you is not a crisis at all. It is a moment of clarity, revealing where you are still attached, where you are still vulnerable, where you are still measuring your worth through someone else's gaze. And this brings us to something that may sound counterintuitive, but is profoundly true. Indifference is not the goal. True indifference is often just numbness in disguise. What you're cultivating here is not indifference, but presence, the ability to stay emotionally open and yet non-attached. To say, "I care, but I will not collapse. I desire, but I will not chase. I feel, but I will not react." This is emotional alchemy, the art of feeling everything and needing nothing, of holding space for your own disappointment without letting that disappointment define you, of maintaining tenderness even in the face of disconnection. And she will feel this shift in you. Even if she never says a word, even if she never texts back, she will sense your change in energy. Because energy is what we communicate far more powerfully than words. When you stop needing her attention to feel whole, when you stop orbiting around her moods and her silences, you become centered in yourself, and that centeredness is magnetic. Now, let's talk practically about what this looks like in your everyday life. When a woman ignores you, you don't retaliate by ignoring her in return out of spite. That's just another game, another ego battle. Instead, you respond to her silence by nourishing yourself. You go to the gym not to impress her, but because your body matters to you. You invest in your friendships not to show off how social you are, but because community nourishes you. You pursue your hobbies not as a distraction, but because your life is meaningful beyond her gaze. And when or if she returns, you greet her calmly. You do not lecture her, demand explanations, or punish her for the silence. You welcome her back warmly, but without surrendering your center. You listen to her words, but remain anchored in your own truth. You may choose to engage again, or you may decide that her pattern of withdrawing is not something you want to entertain long term. But either way, you act from choice, not compulsion. You see, this is the true destruction of ego, not humiliation, not revenge, not proving anything, but transcending the dynamic entirely. You no longer need her silence to hurt you, nor her attention to heal you. Yourself, sufficient, emotionally whole, and deeply at peace with whatever unfolds. And that peace is precious, because it allows you to love from abundance rather than from lack. It allows you to give freely without fear. It allows you to let go when necessary without bitterness or regret. So if you're sitting in silence right now, waiting for a reply that isn't coming, I want you to take this as an invitation to step into your own life more fully than you ever have before. Her silence is simply the canvas on which you paint your response. Make it beautiful, make it calm. Make it grounded in dignity, presence, and grace. Because when you respond this way, you become a different kind of man, not one who needs women to complete him, but one who is complete in himself and therefore able to engage with women from a place of wholeness and choice, and that is where real freedom lies. As you start to feel this shift inside, this inner spaciousness, this quiet freedom, you begin to realize that her silence is no longer dictating your emotional landscape. You are no longer walking around with your mind preoccupied, your chest tight, your worth hanging on a message that may or may not come. Instead, something more profound is emerging in you, an ability to sit in the unknown without rushing to resolve it. This ability is rare. Most people, not just men, feel deeply uncomfortable when faced with relational uncertainty. We want immediate answers, explanations, or clarity, but life and intimacy are rarely that clean. Women, too, are navigating their own complexities. Their silences are often not cold dismissals, but places where they are retreating into themselves, reflecting, sorting through emotions they may not even fully understand. And so your greatest power lies not in demanding clarity from her, but in creating clarity within yourself. It means cultivating the ability to say, I may not know what's happening for her right now, but I know what's happening in me. I know that I am worthy of respect, worthy of love, worthy of being met in a relationship with presence and reciprocity. This is not arrogance, it's self-respect, and when you anchor yourself here, something shifts in how you show up for connection. You become more discerning. You no longer chase attention, you invite presence. You no longer seek to win anyone over, you offer yourself fully but without clinging. This is the core of mature masculinity, not emotional coldness, but emotional clarity. A man who knows what he stands for, what he values, and who he chooses to share his life with are not based on desperation or scarcity, but on mutual recognition and respect. And so, when a woman ignores you, you now have a framework for how to act. You act as a man who is sovereign, who governs himself, who recognizes that her presence is an invitation, not a necessity. You do not punish her for pulling away. You do not diminish yourself in pursuit of her attention. You simply continue to live your life with richness, depth, and authenticity. And if she returns, you greet her with warmth, but also with discernment. Because here's another subtle but crucial point. Just because she returns does not mean you should automatically open the door. A woman's silence may reveal patterns that you need to see clearly, patterns of emotional avoidance, patterns of inconsistency, patterns that suggest she may not have the capacity right now to engage with you at the level you deserve. And so when she comes back, as many do when they sense that your energy has detached, you meet her calmly but thoughtfully. You ask yourself honestly, Is this woman able to show up for the kind of connection I want? Is her return an indication of genuine interest and readiness, or simply a response to the shift in power dynamics? This is where your emotional mastery becomes so important, because your ability to hold both openness and discernment, to remain kind and generous, but also clear and self-respecting, is what prevents you from falling back into old patterns. You don't need to rush into reconciliation. You can take your time. You can allow space for dialogue, for mutual understanding, and for observing whether her actions match her words. And here's something beautiful that happens when you live this way. You begin to attract different kinds of women altogether. Women who are themselves emotionally mature, who respect clarity, who value presence, who are drawn to the steadiness that you now embody. Your energy no longer signals neediness or urgency. It signals depth, calm, and abundance. You become a man who is capable of holding space for intimacy without collapsing into insecurity. And this shift is not just attractive, it's healing for both of you. Because when a man leads with this kind of emotional intelligence, it invites a woman to feel safe, to soften, to meet you as an equal rather than as an object of pursuit. But it all begins with what you do in that first moment of silence, the moment she ignores your text, the moment she withdraws emotionally, the moment she goes quiet. How you respond in that space sets the tone for everything that follows. So when that moment comes, and it will, again and again in life, not just with one woman, but with many, remember this: you are not defined by whether she replies today. You are not defined by whether she comes back tomorrow. You are defined by how you treat yourself in this moment. And when you treat yourself with dignity, with calm, with presence, when you nourish your own life rather than waiting for hers to include you, you not only protect your emotional well-being, you elevate the entire quality of connection you can create with women. That's what we're really talking about here. Not games, not tactics, not manipulation, but a profound reorientation toward yourself, toward your own dignity, your own freedom, your own clarity. When you embody this way of being, you stop asking, "How do I destroy her ego?" That question dissolves. Instead, you start asking, "How do I honor my worth while staying open to love without sacrificing myself for it?" That's the shift. That's the growth. That's the path of a man who is no longer thrown off balance by silence, but anchored in his own presence. So the next time you feel that sting, when your message is met with nothing but stillness, pause. Breathe, feel the discomfort, but don't rush to fix it. Stay with yourself, reclaim your time, your energy, your focus. Let her feel your absence, not as a punishment, but as a quiet declaration of your self-respect. And from that place of calm you wait, not for her message, but for your own clarity to arrive. And so here you are, quietly inhabiting a space many men never allow themselves to reach. A place where you are no longer waiting for a woman's attention to affirm your worth, but instead living from an inner fullness that radiates outward. You are not empty, hoping she will fill you. You are whole, allowing her or anyone to meet you as an equal, never as your completion. But let's go even deeper, because this isn't just about managing one moment of being ignored or navigating a single relationship. It's about cultivating an entirely new way of being in all of your relationships, one rooted in presence, not performance. This is what emotional maturity looks like: a man who is attuned to his own needs and feelings, who can recognize disappointment without collapsing into resentment, who can hold his own value even when another person does not actively mirror it back to him. And when you live from this place, you find yourself responding to her silence with something even more profound: empathy. Instead of framing her withdrawal as an insult or rejection, you start to see it for what it often is: a reflection of her own internal complexity, struggles, fears, or hesitations. You don't have to rescue her, explain her, or chase after her emotions, but you can understand that just as you are learning to hold space for your discomfort, she may be doing the same. This ability to hold empathy without surrendering self-worth, respect is what defines mature intimacy. It is what allows you to remain loving even when the dynamic shifts. You can care without clinging. You can let go without bitterness. And when she returns, as many women do when they sense a man's dignified detachment, you can welcome her openly but without abandoning the clarity you have found. You have become a man who understands that love is not about possession, but about invitation. That a relationship is not sustained by anxiety or urgency, but by the steady rhythm of two people choosing freely day after day to meet each other as they are. And this is where the deepest lesson lies. You do not need to destroy her ego to reclaim your power. That very framing is rooted in conflict, in the old dance of dominance and submission, of who holds control and who is being controlled. True power, mature masculine power, does not seek to dominate. It seeks to liberate both yourself and the woman you are engaging with from the endless, exhausting loops of neediness, approval, seeking, games, and manipulation. So when a woman ignores you, your most powerful response is not to react with anger or indifference, but to respond with presence, dignity, and calm discernment. You stay open but not desperate. You stay caring but not needy. You stay grounded but not cold. You know that your attention is a gift, not a transaction. That your time is valuable, not expendable. That your love is abundant, but should always be given in alignment with your own well-being. And here's what's beautiful about this posture. It doesn't just affect your relationship with this one woman, it changes how you relate to everyone. You stop craving external validation. You stop seeking your worth in how others respond. You start living with a quiet confidence, an emotional elegance that transforms every interaction you have. Women feel this shift. They sense when you are a man who does not crumble in silence, who does not lose himself in pursuit, who does not oscillate between neediness and withdrawal. They sense that your love is not something they can manipulate, because it's not born from insecurity, it's born from a well of internal fullness. And this changes everything, because ultimately relationships thrive not on drama, but on presence. Not on games, but on authenticity. Not on control, but on choice. You are learning to act from choice, to stay or go, to engage or step back from a place of clarity, not compulsion. And this is the highest expression of masculine power, not the need to conquer, but the ability to choose freely and consciously what is right for you. So as we close this conversation, I want to leave you with this. Every time a woman ignores you, it is a mirror reflecting not your inadequacy, but your opportunity, the opportunity to step more fully into yourself, to deepen your emotional clarity, to affirm your worth independent of anyone else's gaze. It's never about destroying her ego. That path will only entangle you further in her emotional landscape and pull you away from yourself. The real path is about dissolving your own ego's need for external approval and stepping into a space where your worth is so intrinsic, so grounded, that you are free. Free to care, free to let go, free to stay, free to walk away, but always free. And that freedom is what she will feel most when she senses you, even in silence. Especially in silence, the energy of a man who is no longer performing for approval, but living in truth, that is a rare and beautiful energy. So next time the silence comes, welcome it. Let it invite you back into yourself. Let it remind you that you are not defined by her reply, her attention, or her absence. You are defined by how you hold yourself in every moment of uncertainty. And from that place, steady, grounded, open, you will navigate not just this situation, but every intimate relationship with elegance, dignity, and grace. Here's to you standing tall, standing calm, and always choosing yourself first, not as a rejection of her, but as a celebration of your own wholeness. Thank you for being here today, and thank you for having the courage to look within and rise above. If this resonates with you, share your thoughts in the comments below. I love hearing your stories, your questions, your experiences. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the Intimacy Lab for more deep, real conversations like this one. Until next time, stay grounded, stay open, stay whole.